Greetings to everyone present here. We feel honored to be hosting this webinar about the man who changed the scientific landscape of India, our ex president, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam.
An epitome of simple living and high thinking. The young Dr. Kalam grew up in abject poverty, struggling in life, not even able to find a job. There is a particular incident which I wish to narrate to you. He applied for NDA and even got a call. He was overjoyed and expected to be admitted. But then came the real dilemma. He did not even have the money for the fare. His sister came to his rescue and sold off her earrings. Even so, this could only provide for one side of the fare. He took the journey anyway. But, as fate would have it, it was not accepted. Being rejected and not knowing how to face the world, more so his sister, he decided to end his life. When he was near the river, a saint, who had been observing his desolate state, walked up to him and inquired about his state of misery. Dr. Kalam was forthright and shared his state of mind with him. The saint calmed him and reassured him that he needs to have faith in God and there must be a greater cause he had to fulfill in this life. The saint then asked Dr. Kalam to come and spend the night in the nearby ashram and promised to give him the return fare. So, from there to becoming the missile man of India to becoming the president, he showed that no matter how many obstacles meet your path, it is always up to you to get past them and reach your destination.
This incident really shows us that Dr. Kalam struggled a lot and the great personality of the man he was. The praise he has today is not something he asked for, but something he gained. Today with us, we have Ishan Sharma, a writer, heritage activist, interviewer, and founder of a student led heritage exploration initiative, Karwan, and also alumni of our school. Ishan not only published a book about Dr. Kalam's life at 16, but is also listed in Delhi University 21 under 21 list of young achievers and is here to tell us more about the life and dream of one of the most inspirational presidents, APJ Abdul Kalam. So please welcome Ishan Sharma.
Thank you so much, Anya and Ishita, for the wonderful introduction. Good morning, dear young friends, teachers, and principal of my alma mater, Delhi Public School, Kalyanpur. Thank you for inviting me today to deliver this lecture on the occasion of the birth anniversary of my guru, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, which we all celebrate as World Students' Day. Kalam Sahab was a man who devoted his life to a national mission that was making an economically developed nation, India 2020. He always worked towards finding answers to questions like how India can be developed, how can we transform India economically, and how India can lead the world. He was truly a people's president who used to meet people and especially young citizens during his visits as presidents, and even after his retirement, he used to meet students in schools and colleges. I was one of the many million of students who were inspired from his life and works. And I wrote my book, The Teacher I Never Met, when I was in Delhi Public School in class 11, in class 12th. A lot can be said about that magnificent man, but I think if he was among us today, he would definitely say that move ahead of the introduction and just skip to the main content of the lecture. So I will do so. And today we are going to explore Kalam's idea of India 2030. That was 2020, but now it has extended to 2030. In his book India 2020, which he co-authored with Y.S. Rajan, he laid down a few points on what an economically developed nation should look like. And I quote him: a nation where the urban and rural divide has been reduced to a thin line. A nation where there's an equitable distribution and adequate access to energy and quality water. A nation where agriculture, industry, and the service sector, these are the three sectors of the Indian economy, and these must work in symphony. A nation where education with a good value system that is missing in India, unfortunately, that should not be denied to any meritorious candidate because of societal or economic discrimination. A nation which is the best destination for all the scholars, scientists, and great minds from around the world. A nation where the best of healthcare is available to all. A nation where governance is responsive, transparent, and corruption free. A nation where poverty has been totally eradicated, illiteracy removed, crime against women and children is absent, and no one in the society should feel alienated. A nation that is prosperous, healthy, secure, devoid of terrorism, peaceful, and happy, and it should continue on a sustainable growth path, as even the United Nations now says that the world have to follow a sustainable growth path in order to save the resources, very limited resources that we have in the world. And lastly, a nation that is one of the best places to live in and is proud of its leadership. This is a fantastic aim and a very big aim as well. As he used to say, that one must have the courage to think big. And dreams are not that you see while you are asleep. Dream is something that doesn't let you sleep. This was the dream that Kalam always wanted to achieve in his life. And he worked till the end of his life. He worked toward achieving this goal. You have to dream before your dream can come true. So we have to do better in areas of education, agriculture, healthcare, information and technology, infrastructure development that includes electricity, transport, and diminishing rural and urban divide, as I mentioned. These avenues are really difficult to achieve even in the next 70 years if the youth of this great nation doesn't come together to achieve those. According to Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, it is the time for the nation and its leaders to take up a review mission and suggest methods by which we can accelerate progress so that by 2030 India can achieve the mission of an economically developed nation with zero poverty, 100% literacy, quality healthcare for all, value added employment for every citizen, consistent with his educational qualifications and professional skills. And as we today see, the Indian education system is completely about rote learning. We are, you know, what you can say, the mind of the young Indian is like, I have to do engineering or I have to just be a doctor. They do not think beyond the clouds, or they just try to rote learn the CBSE textbook or the exam idea book that you get in board. I remember those good days. So that is how the Indian education system presently, looks like. That is in a crisis mode, if you can say. So we have to work on that if we want a developed nation. A report by a very famous newspaper, The Hindu, says that India is set to become the youngest nation by the end of this year, 2020. 2020 was not a good year at all for anyone. We are amidst a pandemic, and the Indian economy is struggling. But the ray of hope lies in the fact that India is going to be the youngest nation in the world. And because I am a history student, I often say that India is the youngest nation with the oldest civilization, because our civilization dates back thousands of years ago in the Bronze Age civilization, the Indus Valley civilization. So, youth is the power of India. And this mantra we all have to remember. Each and every young citizen of this nation who is listening to this uh, right now, they must understand that it is us who are going to lead the nation and the world. We have to be the change that we want to see in this nation, and not just in the nation. The ancient civilization, the tradition of India says Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So we have to think about the word as well. The former judge of the Supreme Court, Markandeya Katju, once wrote in one of his articles that reforms will not do India any good, only a revolution will. And the past and present generation of politicians, lawmakers, policymakers are answerable to us. They have to tell us why we couldn't be the leaders in the past 70 plus years of independence. It is the time for the young people like me and you to work in the policy making sectors, to work in the law building, to work in the nation building sectors. And we have to openly participate in politics if necessary. And we must be given equal space and representation in the society. In 2019, N.R. Narayan Murthy, the co-founder of the Infosys, said that looking at what is happening in India, different parts of India today, the youth must bluntly state that this was not the nation that our forefathers fought for. We have more than 400 million young citizens. And before I move further, I would request you all, whoever is listening through Facebook or any different platform, to comment your idea of India 2030, and we'll take those ideas uh, after the lecture, and we'll have a conversation on that, and I'll be happy to answer any questions regarding those. So we have more than 400 million youngsters in this nation, and it is very important to talk about the role we are going to play in the nation, in the process, especially in the process of nation building and strengthening the democracy. Youth in any country forms the backbone of the nation. It is on our shoulder that the responsibility for change, progress, and innovation lies. The youth is said to have hot blood, and when it gets stirred up, they can fight any social or economic problem at all, even a problem as big as terrorism. We have the inspirational figure called Malala Yousafzai, the Nobel Prize winner, who fought the Talibanis in Pakistan. Dr. Kalam always used to say that, you know, the child says, "You give me." The teenager says, "I want to do it alone." And the young person says, "Let us do it together." But do any of you know what a leader would say? A leader would say, a leader would ask, "What can I give?" This is the positive cry, "What can I give?" which is most important to the nation today. What can I give? This attitude will help in fields like healthcare, education, politics, etc. Young citizens of this great nation have to emerge as leaders, and three people will play a major role. And I would be very happy to see you all type who can be those three people who are going to play an important role in nation building. If you can see us, please do write in the comment, and I would request Anya and Ishita, if they are with us right now, to answer. Who, according to you, three people who are going to play an important role in nation building? Any one of you?
One of them will probably be the youth of our country.
Youth? No. Any other in the chat? I'm just looking for the chat. Okay. So let me answer this. You do not have to play a major role in that. The youth doesn't have to play a major role. The major role will be played by your teachers, your father, and your mother. They are the building blocks of your characteristic and your future. Teachers who are watching us right now, they are the builders of your character. They are the one who will inculcate the value systems in you. So these are the three people who will play a major role. And when I talk about leader, what is the definition of leader? Some of you might argue that leader is somebody who leads a group or a nation, if you say political, in political terms. A leader may be, prime minister can be a leader, or the president can be a leader. But what is the definition of leader? Can anybody answer that? What is a leader? A leader is somebody who have a vision and passion, and he or she should not be afraid of problems. That is, problem should not be the captain, and you should be able to defeat it. A leader, most importantly, must work with integrity. So these are the three characters of a leader. The first is he should have a vision. Second, he should be fearless. Third, he should work with integrity. And what will it lead to? Working with integrity will lead to succeeding with integrity. That is, if I can speak in Hindi, जो काफी एक बहुत famous slogan है, सबका साथ सबका विकास. That is the meaning. That is the third pillar of the leadership. That is working with integrity and succeeding with integrity. There are countless things that one can learn from the life and works of India's beloved teacher, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. How he fought with the odds in his life, and he used to sell newspapers in the morning before he goes to school. So he lived in a very poor state of lifestyle, if you can say. He was very poor, but he fought. His sister had to mortgage her jewelry in order to facilitate Kalam's education in Madras Institute of Technology in Aeronautical Science. He gave the Air Force exam. Acha, one thing you all must know, Dr. Kalam never wanted to be a scientist. His dream was something different, and I hope many of you might know what was his dream. His dream was to be an Air Force fighter jet pilot. He gave the exam. He got fairly good marks. He got selected for the the physical exam. Out of 10 candidates, only 9 were selected. And the 10th candidate was Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Imagine you being in the IIT JEE exam, giving your best, thinking that this is my dream, I want to be an engineer, I want to get into IIT, failing to do so, how would that feel? The feeling of loss, the feeling that I did everything but I couldn't get into it. And Ishita already told you about the episode that he met Shivananda. He was in Rishikesh, he was wandering around and he met Swami Shivananda there. Shivananda said to Kalam that, this was not your destiny. You have to accept your destiny. You do not really know what you want to do right now, but it is already predestined that you have to be something bigger than that. So move ahead, work hard, and keep working. The perseverance is very important. And then he started his work in DRDL, ISRO, DRDO, and then as the chairman of TIFAC, he became the man behind India's nuclear test, the successful Pokhran nuclear test. Kalam became the 11th president of India. And even after his retirement from the office of the President of India, he traveled across the nation to more than thousands of villages in distinct remote areas of the nation, trying to work on his dream called providing urban amenities to rural areas, that is the Pura, Pura. It was his dream. Kalam donated his entire salary as the president, even his savings, to Pura. That was the great man, Kalam. He used to share his vision of India 2020 with students until his last breath in 2015 while delivering a lecture. Can anybody tell us what was the title of his last lecture? What was the last lecture he gave? Do Ishita or Anya know about this?
Um,
Okay, so the last lecture was very interesting. He was about to speak, and he spoke around for about 10 to 15 minutes, and he fell down. He got a cardiac arrest, and in the evening he passed away. But the title of his last lecture was Creating a Livable Planet Earth. That was how we can create a livable planet. And if you listen to his advisor's interview after his death, he told the news channels that Kalam, while going to Shillong, was discussing how the youth can contribute to the proper functioning of the parliament in India, and he was going to give an assignment to the IIM students to work upon this idea. How can the parliament work properly in the nation? Such was the great man Kalam, and his dream was that I must die in between, teaching, while teaching. So God really was kind enough to listen to his last wish. So today, as we celebrate the 89th birth anniversary of my Guru, Dr. Kalam, the young students like you and me must take a pledge to devote ourselves to the idea of young and developed India by 2030. Let me just share you a couple of more episodes from Dr. Kalam's life. It was the year, I think, 1970s, when India was struggling to get missile technologies from America and the developed Western countries. Everybody denied that, no, we cannot give you. It was Dr. Kalam who decided that we should indigenously make those missile technologies in India. A place was found in Kerala where a church was donated as the mission, the mission headquarters, where the missile was made. It was made in a church. It is a Thumba rocket launch. The place called Thumba, and you can see the pictures of Kalam working on the missile. The team worked 24/7 for many months. Thousands and lakhs of rupees were put up on the mission. You can see a picture of Kalam riding a bicycle carrying the missile. That is a very famous picture of SLV-3, because there were no big trucks and vehicles, proper transportation in the village at that time. So they had to manage everything by themselves. So they took the missile on a bicycle and took it to um, the launch area. He was the mission director, project director of SLV-3. The computer, while launching, and the back counting was starting, that T-1, T-2, the counting started. The computer said, don't launch the vehicle, don't launch SLV-3. Warnings started coming up. Kalam, as the leader, he had to take a decision, because if he aborts now, that will be a big disaster, because hundreds of rupees will go into waste. And if he does launch it, it might lead to a crash. Now, in this situation, what will you do? Some of us might have, just run away from there, or might, fall unconscious because of the panic that might create. Kalam decided that he would go with his, conscience, and he bypassed the computer. There are 4 stages of a rocket launch, you see. The first stage went perfectly well. The second stage, wonderful, beautiful. In the third stage, started rolling, and it rolled and rolled, and it fell into Bay of Bengal. It was a massive failure. Lakhs of rupees were into the Bay of Bengal now. It was a crash. The whole world press was there for the press conference. Kalam was depressed. He wanted to resign from ISRO. There came his guru Satish Dhawan, who taught him aeronautical engineering. Satish Dhawan said, Kalam, you wait, I'll handle the press conference. He went ahead, he addressed the press conference, said, it is a failure, but the next time it will be a successful launch. Next time, the second launch was a massive success. India became one of the earliest countries to be self-independent in missile technologies. Kalam and Kalam should be credited for it, and Satish Dhawan. Now, for the success, Satish Dhawan asked Kalam to go and lead the press conference, as he was the project director, mission director. So one lesson that we all must learn as youngsters, that a leader takes a little more than his share of blame and a little less share of the credit. This is something which is very essential to a leader. He's free from ego. And this is something we should learn from Kalam's life. Another is, I talked about that we should develop our healthcare system, that it must be affordable for all. If you, God forbid, if you go to a hospital someday, okay, you will see how expensive the tests are, how expensive the operations and the procedures are. It takes lakhs and lakhs of rupees in private hospitals, and the government hospitals are very bad. They are in a very bad situation. So Dr. Kalam, there's a medical problem that your arteries become sometimes blocked, so that might lead to cardiac arrest. So the doctors use stunt to help you, live a little longer. So Kalam thought that a stunt cost around 4 lakh rupees per stunt. It's like a string. If you go online, you can search. It's like a string that is used. So Kalam invented a stunt, that is Kalam Raju stunt, that was 50-60% lower than the price of the imported stunt that were used in India earlier. You know, it cost around 2 lakh rupees per stunt at that time. But after Kalam Saab introduced Kalam Raju stunt, it cost only 12,000 rupees. Such innovations are the need of the hour. And who will do those innovations? Those innovators will come from us, the young lot of this nation. Coming to the last few points, Kalam gave us 4 qualities of a successful man. How many of you want to be successful in life? Type yes, no, whatever. How many of you want to be successful in life? So Kalam Sahab said to succeed in life, there are 4 essential qualities, and I think all of you must write it down. 4 essential qualities are: first, a young person must have a great aim in life. Write down in the chat what is your aim in life. Write in your diary, write on your wall of your room, what is your aim in life. Second, you should continuously acquire the knowledge. Now, third, you must do hard work. As they say, there's no shortcut for success. Hard work is the key. Kalam did a lot of hard work in his life to be what he was. Fourth is perseverance. Nothing comes quick. You have to wait. You have to work hard till you achieve that goal, but you have to keep doing it. It is not like कि 2 दिन पहले हमने एग्जाम के पढ़ लिया and we just got some average marking and we feel happy about that. That should not be the case. So these are the 4 essential qualities that might help you succeed in life. And this was Kalam's idea. And believe me, if you go and read Kalam's books, you will find thousands more ideas to lead the nation, to lead India in a better place than it is today. We are struggling in terms of economy, in terms of religious tolerance in the nation. It is very disheartening. Kalam said, great people make religion a tool for making friends. Small people make it a tool to fight against each other. We are struggling in the field of technology. We are struggling in the field of innovation. Indian education system is not making us innovative. And I think we should work on it, especially the teachers of this great nation. The biggest challenge of the youth is the lack of clarity of thoughts and vision and and lack of direction. So teachers will provide the direction, and they will provide the clarity of thoughts. So teachers, fathers and mothers, parents, these people have to help the young people of India to lead the nation. And the young people like you and me have to follow four points, as I said. To have a great aim in life, you have to dream transform into thoughts, and thoughts transform into action. This is the mantra. Write it anywhere. Dream transform into thoughts, and thoughts transforms into action. We have to keep doing hard work, and we have to dedicate ourselves to the cause of making India great again, as it was in history. Thank you so much, and I would really appreciate to have questions and comments, any if there are.
Words can never be enough to appropriately celebrate the life of a man so great. But Mr. Ishant Sharma has so eloquently and vividly touched upon the theories set out by the visionary.
Uh, if there are any questions that anybody wants to ask, please feel free to.
We are open to all kinds of queries and questions. Thank you.
I see some questions on Facebook. Let me just take some of those questions. And I couldn't see all the questions, but there are some questions that Ashish Verma asked that my question is, what is a new occupation we can start for our future? Like something special that can help people and bright the future of our country. Acha. Ashish ji, this question is, fundamentally very stereotypical. Why do you want to set parameters for the young people that they should do this occupation particularly? Why don't you let the young people set free to explore the world by themselves? This is a very typical, Indian parents mentality, that you want to have a secure, paying employment for the young people. I request every young people to not fall into the stereotypical frameworks and try to explore the world by themselves. Anand Kumar asks, how can we change our thinking? Anand, if you want to change your thinking, start reading books of great people, great leaders. Read Buddha, read Mahatma Gandhi, read Swami Vivekanand. These people, read Dr. Kalam. Dr. Kalam has written many books. Lovi asks, I think you can invite suggestions by parents, teachers, and students to improve our education system. Yes, Lovi, and I would request every one of you, whoever is listening to me right now, write down my email address, that is ishansha@gmail.com, ESHANSHA @gmail.com. Mail me your ideas for India 2030. How do you want to see India in future? And I would be happy to interact with you through email. Daksh asks, why do Indian parents think gaming waste? Daksh, as I said, there are stereotypical, frameworks in a society that are very useful many a times, but sometimes they are, they need to be changed. If I talk about gaming, gaming is an emerging field. Many teachers might take it as a very good joke, but in recent times, gaming has emerged, especially the online gaming has emerged to be a big market. And as we said, as we saw, the recent ban on PUBG led to a very big decline in the Chinese market. So it is a good emerging, I think, profession for the young people. I do not really know about gaming much. To be successful, first know how to become failure. My thoughts. Sudarshan Das. Sudarshan, your ideas are really very important. As I said, Kalam first, Kalam's first lesson that he learned was to celebrate failure. We all can manage success. When we get success, we become happy, we party. But when we get low marks in exams or we fail, do we really try to celebrate it? No, because it is very saddening. So we must celebrate our failures. That is one thing. So you are very correct there. Dimpy Birla asks, what is the mantra to become success for kids? Hard work, perseverance, dreaming, and continuously acquiring knowledge. That is the mantra for success for kids. If you can imbibe this in your kid at a very early stage of their life, he can be a great person. He can be a great, leader in future. Indu Maheshwari asks, you have seen the very disheartening Hathras case. How to prevent that kind of things? I am deeply saddened by the fact that rapes are becoming very common in India. It is very disheartening for me as a young citizen. As I said, education with a good value system is very necessary. And teachers, parents are going to imbibe that value system into students. And I think that is one of the ways I can think about reducing that tendency that we are, moving towards.
A question by Santosh Kumar. What is more necessary than hard work?
What is more necessary than hard work? That's a good question. More necessary than hard work is your dream. You must have a dream before you do hard work. You cannot just waste your energy into anything. You should think about what you want to do in life, and you should have a proper aim that I want to be a lawyer, so I will work towards it. So you do hard work in that field then. So that is my answer. You have to dream first.
A question by Satyam Dubey. Is being successful, rich, and powerful different?
Is being successful, rich, and powerful is different? Is that the question? See,
Yes.
I have met Sudha Murthy and Narayan Murthy. They are the most powerful couples of India. They are the people behind Infosys. I asked the same question to them. They are one of the richest in India. I asked them, Narayan Murthy ji, what is your definition of success. He says, if I can spread smiles to faces, that is success to me. Money and power is very, is a very temporary thing in life. You might not have money after some time, or you might lose power after some time. But what remains with you is a good character, a good human being that you will be, and a good, something that you can give back to the society. The mantra that I gave, what can I give? This positive attitude towards the society, that is something very important to being successful.
How does one handle failure?
How does one okay, see, in theory it might look very good and very easy, but when you see the practicality of it, even I will think twice, because failure is something that sets us aback and make us very depressed. When we face failure, we do not know what to do. We might read thousands of books by Kalam, we might read thousands of books by Swami Vivekananda, but when it comes to us, we don't really, know what to do. I might speak a lot of things today, but if I face failure, I might also feel very sad. But you have to think what Swami Sivanand told Kalam. If you failed somewhere, it is not in your destiny. Move ahead, work hard, and maybe you will succeed one day.
Achla Soni wants to ask, how can I improve my science skills as I want to become a scientist?
Okay, I am a history guy. I am a humanities student, but I come from a family who are physicists. And if you want to do great in science, read books. Because I had a library where you get 80% of books by physicists. So I read them, read about, you know, cosmology and metaphysics and all the great new emerging fields that are coming up. Read about the philosophy behind science, not science not as merely facts and equations, but science as a part of social science, humanities, the philosophy. So I think that might help you, ponder a lot more than what you think today about science. That might lead you to innovative ideas, and when innovative idea strikes your brain, work towards it, work hard, persevere, and you will achieve that what you want to achieve, the fair skill in science.
Could you
What
tell
was
us something about Mr. Kalam's childhood?
Kalam Sahab was born in Dhanushkodi, Rameshwaram in 1931 on the same day today. And he was a shy kid, as we all know. He used to, he didn't speak much, and he was born in very poor family. His father was an imam and a boatsman. They owned a boat in Rameshwaram. And his father's best son was a Hindu priest. And they used to meet in a church. So that made him a very religiously tolerant person who used to read Bhagavad Gita and Quran Sharif. So that was his, childhood like. He lived in a village where he had nothing but, uh, you know, his dreams with him, really. He used to sell newspapers in order to pay his school fees. He had a young an older sister and an older brother, and his brother is still alive. He is more than 100 years age now. So that is all about Dr. Kalam's childhood. Nothing, very fancy about it, but yes, very inspirational.
what was Kalam's parents' contribution to the kind of man he was?
See, Kalam's parent taught him the importance of hard work. Kalam's father was a boatman. It really you need really very much physical strength to row a boat. Okay, so when he used to see, and when he was young, he used to go to the Rameshwaram beach to see how boats were made. So that procedure of making of boats inspired him to pursue science. Her mother was a homemaker, his mother was a homemaker, and she used to, uh, you know, run the house with limited resources. That is very important to learn how you manage with limited resources that you have, because human needs are unlimited. Today I want to be a crorepati, a billionaire, but tomorrow I might want, something more than that. So how to live in less and live happily? That is, I think, one of the biggest thing that he learned from his parents. Another thing is religious tolerance. As I said, his father used to meet Hindu priest and the bishop in the church. They used to discuss the things of about their village, how they should develop the village. I think these all things shaped his life in a very big way, that the man he became later on.
How can we chase laziness to fulfill our dreams?
Laziness, I am a lazy person, so I don't really know how to answer that question. Every student is lazy, and it is okay to be lazy. You just because laziness is also a good trait. I think if you can just sit and you can just daydream, how good is that? But then you should also work hard towards it. Dream is okay, start working towards it. Don't be as lazy as you should. And I think if you have a passion in life, you won't feel lazy, you will keep working. So develop a passion. Even if you are good at gaming, if you have a passion in gaming, somebody asked a question on gaming, play not just computer games, but go outside, play outdoor games as well, but do it with passion. I think that will help you reduce the laziness in you.
If we fail to achieve our goals and get depressed, what should we do?
As I already said, believe in your destiny and move ahead. you know if you fail, the second perspective of the same answer would be, if you say every scientific discovery that we have achieved in the past hundred thousands of years of human history, you will see that failure was the first step towards success. First, every scientist, every great inventor, discoverer failed. Then, after trying twice, thrice, even 99 times, then they succeeded. So, if you have believe in yourself that yes, I can do it and keep working towards it. I think that will help you in gaining confidence in yourself. And if you are confident in yourself, nobody can make you feel sad, or you cannot ever feel depressed in life. That is, I think, an important thing to remember for all.
How do we avoid stress and pressure created from exams?
See, y- this is a very good question, because exams are a very big thing. We say that if we do not score well, our future will be over. There's a perception among us that exam is everything. We are becoming exam centric. I think the teachers, the administrators, the school administration management, everyone, and students should done away with exams. Exams are nothing. And I say it with confidence after talking to experts in the field. Because when we prepare for exams, we do not really read, we rote learn. We take out the book and we started reading. Oh, acha, this is the book Portrait of a Young Lady by Khushwant Singh. I have to read it out loud just to remember all the lines of the chapter. That should not be the case. You should learn the essence of every chapter, everything in the syllabus. So for that, the pressure of exam should be diminished, should be reduced in schools and colleges. This change in the education system is necessary. Why don't the teachers think about, you know, changing the pattern to very practical centric, ask them to solve a real life problem relating science, like, solar energy is very efficient. We are a very subtropical nation where solar energy is available, uh, in a good amount. But the solar powered, the cells are very expensive in India. So why don't the teachers ask students to prepare a project where they can find an alternative to solar energy, a cheaper alternative, and they judge, they give marks on that basis. That might reduce cramming part, the rote learning part, and that might help in practical learning. That is very essential. Practical learning, practical implementation of what you learn is very essential in 2020 and in India 2030 of my dream.
Could you tell us a bit about your experience with success and failure?
See, my experience with success and failure. Okay, this is a good question. uh, you know let me share a very funny anecdote from Delhi Public School itself. And I think, uh, my economics teacher who was in class 12th is now in a different school though. But she used to say, not the economics teacher, though I did fairly bad in economics as well, but I took up maths in class 11th and 12th, and I knew that I couldn't do maths. I am not good in maths. I don't know, much of anything after class 10th in mathematics. So there's no shame in that, of course. But I passed class 11th with okayish marks in maths. But there's a sense that I have to do maths because my whole family is of physicists. That was the pressure that I had. In class 12th, I scored very less, lesser than the passing marks. I failed in class 12th maths, the pre-boards or whatever they have, I forgot. So it was in August that I failed, and in October, I decided that I would change my subject to political science. And then I became the school topper in the subject. I got 99 in political science in class 12th. So that was the failure that I faced in mathematics. I still don't like mathematics. So I have downloaded couple of calculators on my phone to just help me out with, the things. So that is something, that might be helpful to students.
Could you throw some light on time management?
Okay, time management, I'm very bad at it, but so I won't really give any advices to you all. But one thing I would say is prioritize your things, prioritize your life, because the biggest thing that you can give to a person is time. Time is limited. We all got 24 hours. Even Albert Einstein had 24 hours. But the thing that matters is how they manage their time. Yeah.
I thank you, Mr. Rashant, for being here with us, and I thank all of you for being such a great audience.
And always remember, in life, as Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam said, dreams are not what you see in sleep, but the thing which doesn't let you sleep.
Thank you, Ishita and Anya. And if anybody of you wish to write to me any question that you have are unanswered, write to me on my email, that is ishansha@gmail.com, ESHANSHA@gmail.com. Thank you.